Now we're all live. How's it going, everybody?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is our friend Daniel Martinez with Farmers Insurance. Thank you so much for stopping in for this episode of The Market Made Easy with the Maxwell Group. I am Kellen Hoskins. This is Carissa Maxwell, and today we're going to talk about insurance.
Woohoo!
Everyone hates it, but everyone needs it, right?
That's
right.
one
of those things. And it's an important thing to have, even if sometimes I know a lot of people don't see all the value there, but it is an important thing to have if you have things that you value.
Yeah,
correct?
well, and we get a lot of questions from buyers who are thinking about homeowners insurance and they don't even know where to start. So I think it's a really good idea to talk to you about what people should be thinking about. What questions should they be asking to potential insurance companies about homeowners insurance? I think they don't even sometimes know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
So you definitely have some good information for us. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. But I'm happy to be here more than anything. I'm so excited. So I think one thing we kind of talked about a little bit was you were saying a lot of times that people buy a house and they're concerned about buying a house. And when they buy a house, it's not the same amount of insurance than the purchase amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they'll say, so I just got a quote for my homeowner's insurance, and it's $100,000 less than the purchase price. And I need to go find another home insurance or home insurance quote. And I'm like, well, there's kind of a thing that you need to know, because some people don't, is that the land is still owned. So, the total amount is never going to be the total amount of the purchase price unless there are circumstances, correct?
Yeah, and that's in all circumstances. And even out there right now when people are building a new home, which is very common out here in Prescott and the Quad Cities and also towards Godwin and everywhere else, what we're seeing is a builder doesn't build a home to kind of break even. They build a home to make some money. So a lot of times when we're insuring these houses, we're looking at what the replacement cost on the building the structure is. And so if they own a parcel, 2 acres, that's worth $100,000, like you mentioned, the $100,000 difference, that $100,000 parcel has value, obviously. And then we look at the rebuild cost on the home, not necessarily the market price of the house, which is quite a bit of difference a lot of times too.
Mm-hmm. Here's an off-the-wall insurance question that I actually got a few days ago, because I was actually having this very same conversation. Why isn't my home insured for the purchase price? And I was explaining to them, again, land adds value to the purchase price, obviously. But they had asked the question, what about the foundation of the home? Is that something that's typically salvageable in your experience? Like, say the house burns down, right? Concrete doesn't set fire too easily. So is it something where they, a new builder could potentially use the same slab and kind of build the same floor plan?
Yeah, so a lot of times it's actually just the exact that exact thing is that they're just using the same slab. A lot of times, I would say a good portion of it would be about 65% that they're using the existing slab. And then it depends on the loss, right? If it's a water loss, a lot of times that cement now could be dried out with a lot of professionals that are out there to do the water stuff. But a lot of times we're not looking at the slab. I would say about 65% are we using the existing slab. And a lot of burn downs, I would say, are not complete burn downs neither. A lot of times they're just a kitchen fire, and so we're just looking at replacing the stuff in the kitchen.
Yeah, I think that's a somewhat common misconception too. When someone says, well, my house burned down, it's not like it's a pile of ash on the side of the road. It's, the kitchen is gutted, or the laundry room and part of the garage ends up, being to the point where, the home needs to be rebuilt to an extent.
Correct. And that's kind of the advantage of a stick-built home versus manufactured home. A lot of manufactured homes, you're actually looking at rebuilding the entire house or kind of replacing the home. Yeah. And those fires are a lot more dramatic also because of the type of material that they use. So on manufactured homes, you want to be careful not only on making sure you have a good escape plan to get out of the home, but also making sure you have enough coverage. And I think that was kind of the other thing that we were going to lead into a little bit here, which is a lot of times we buy a depressed home or a house that's not in the greatest condition, and then We repair those homes. We put new floors. We put new carpet, new tile, new restrooms. You know, we spruce the home up, as we used to say, right?
Yeah, well, and just renovating a property. I mean, if you bought a house from 1960 and you're going, oh boy, I got to do a lot of stuff to this. We're not thinking about homeowners insurance.
No,
We're not.
You're not thinking of increasing coverage along with the value that you're adding with those upgrades and updates and all of that remodeling.
Well, not most of the time anyway.
Not most. It's not something that crossed my mind until right now. As the common saying on the internet, I was today years old when I thought about that for the first time.
I love that one, especially with the stapler in the bottom. I just found that one out. But I think one example I have is one of my clients, and this is a really scary process that happened to him, but he's been flipping homes for 20 years, and he bought a house for $250,000. Insured it for $215,000, and then when they insured it for $215,000, he put about $150,000 of improvements. Now, keep in mind that's not every scenario. I understand that's kind of exaggerated, but that's his truth. And so, in that circumstance, he did this revamp, put the house for sale. House was for sale for $625,000, so that's why he's been doing it for 20 years. Good return on that. And
he's been flipping the same house for 20 years. That was an important part of the story that I think he may have left out on.
Yeah. He's been flipping homes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so he's not been in the flipping business necessarily for 20 years. He's been working on.
Well, he could be.
He could have flipped other homes, I suppose, in the meantime. But okay, continue.
Yes, continue.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's awesome.
That kind of caught me off guard for a second.
This one house he's been
flipping the same house for 20 years.
That's exactly it.
Okay,
and
that's not flipping. That's just living in a house and making normal improvements over the course of time.
Which happens. So it's actually
That's
a pretty good example.
Yeah, I love it.
And so in his circumstance, he had the house for sale. A realtor showed the house, and the light flickered. Didn't think nothing of it. Walked away. House completely burns down because of shortage. And with that burn down, the insurance just wrote him a check for $215,000. Never knew about that $150,000. Yeah. And so that $150,000 in improvements were never insured. And so simple things are just important to update your agents on.
Yeah.
I would say that's important.
Yeah.
Today.
Right now.
Today.
Right now. Before you're tomorrow years old,
Yeah.
do it now.
Today years old. Yes. I like it.
Well, and the other thing, too, is belongings. You know, a lot of times I think people neglect to insure, valuable belongings alongside, their home itself. Mm-hmm. I remember, I bought a relatively high-end guitar and was just talking with my insurance agent friend. Wasn't my actual insurance agent. Said, you need to call your insurance agent right now and let them know, because if that goes out in the fire, you're out the money for that guitar, and you're out the guitar.
So any items I think individually that are worth about $2,500 or more are important to insure, and jewelry is a huge kind of thing that we see here. And so there's two ways, at least Farmers insures them. It's as a bundle, so you could bundle it together, and there's no one individual item that's worth more than $2,500. So if you had $15,000 worth of stuff, they'll cover the stuff while it's in the property alone, and just as a bundle, it's cheaper to insure. If you have individual items that you want to insure when you're traveling, when you're out and about, my wife has a tendency of taking off her ring while she washes her hands or washes dishes, and she leaves it somewhere. In that case, if she has it individually appraised and insured for that amount, then it's insured everywhere at any time.
Okay.
That's cool.
So is that something, for certain items, like wedding rings, high-end collectible items, things that have that kind of value? Is it a good idea to wrap that into your homeowner's policy, or would it be a better idea to take out a separate policy for replacement on that?
I'll be honest with you. I'm one to kind of be led by you, right? And so depending on how exquisite the item is, I have a guy right now that has a $250,000 samurai sword collection. Mm-hmm. And so I can't find insurance for that on his homeowners anywhere. Like I can't, that's not a common.
So he would take out a separate policy on that.
So because he deals with a lot of dealers, they have individual kind of policies for those items a lot of times when they're sold.
Kind of the same way you'd insure like a high-end collector's car. You don't just put an auto policy on it, because no one's going to insure it for the $200,000 that it might actually be worth. whether it's a 68 Camaro in absolutely perfect condition with 25,000 miles on it or not, it's going to get insured like it's a car.
Correct.
Versus insured like it's a piece of rolling art. So you would want to insure that differently.
You read it off my mind. RS 68 Camaro. That's it.
Those are beautiful. Those are beautiful.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, what about HOAs?
HOAs. I live in an HOA.
Yes, you do.
And so a big thing that's going on right now is, unfortunately, a lawsuit in Las Vegas. And I always live by example. So right now there's a huge lawsuit in Las Vegas, close to $15 million. Whew. And what's going on is there was on their minutes over and over again an issue about a inner tube slide and about doing that repair to the HOA's park. And they declined it over and over again, 2 months in a row. And so around this holiday season, it wasn't this holiday, but 6 kids were sitting under the inner tube to stay in the shade. And then 2 of them in the tube, and they slid down and it broke and fell on those 6 kids. And they all lived. They're all okay. But those families sued, and there's a loss assessment that's being applied to all those homeowners, about 25 homeowners. $15 million split between all of them. And a lot of people don't know in those HOAs that you have those common spaces shared, that you could have that assessment assessed to you.
Well, and technically they're partially your property in a theoretical way.
Correct. And so those houses are being assessed, that portion of that $15 million to every home.
Oh my gosh.
And so there's coverage for that here in Arizona. $15 a year gets you $50,000 worth of coverage. So small things like that are specific to your home. Again, we want to make sure we insure you the way you need to be, not like everybody else. And so a lot of those things are specific to you and your home.
So do you think for people that live in areas with like private water companies, would that ever cover anything that's like community wells and the private sewer systems, like out in Talking Rock? I mean, would that be something considered if something went wrong with one of those things and was assessed? Is it on all assessments to an area?
So that loss assessment is to it's not specific to HOA, so it's just a loss assessment coverage. So yeah, I would say anything that's common and shared that would apply. And again, $15 a year gets you a long ways with awesome. Coverage. I think we just had somebody fall into a well in or was it Aguila? And he was in the well for like 3 days.
Oh,
where was Lassie? That's what I want to know. They could have just called one dog and it would have been problem solved.
Problem solved.
The kid's name wasn't Timmy, was it?
I wish.
Okay.
Who said insurance was boring?
So what else what should a buyer be asking when they are talking to you? Like for instance, do you cover all pets, for instance? Do you refuse to insure people with specific types of pets?
So that's a great question. And it leads me to 2 things. One is that's the same question for renters. Renters have that same question too, because we have people that own pet bulls. We have a big dog community around here. And so first and foremost, Farmers specifically does not have any issues with any type of dogs as long as they don't have a biting history. So that's a big deal. A lot of insurance companies don't like German Shepherds, Shar-Peis, pet bulls, the list goes on and on. So a lot of times they're like
quote unquote aggressive breeds, basically.
Exactly. And so they say my Lassie is not a pet bull mix. he's not a Rottie mix. They try to avoid those questions. And so as long as they don't have a biting history, we don't have an issue with any type of dogs. And so that's a big thing. Trampolines are a big thing.
Trampolines.
Yeah, that's something that like we're always concerned with. You know, we've got a trampoline in our backyard, and sometimes the neighbor kids come over to play. You know, how does that factor in? Say, you know, the little neighbor kid, you know, breaks his arm on my trampoline.
The biggest thing is there you want to make sure you have enough medical coverage is the first thing, and then liability coverage. How you liable? How you tied into that? But at the end of the day, your liability coverage is going to be your other primary factor there. And then the trampoline thing just not being the trampolines enough, but we see trampolines kind of catching with these gust winds a lot of times, and they're catching.
Well, especially now that they make them with that real lightweight. Sometimes the frames are made out of aluminum or lightweight steel, and yeah, I live in Chino Valley. We have wind.
Yeah, the wind doesn't stop.
It's
It's
bad sometimes, but we fortunately, our trampoline it weighs 400 pounds. It's ridiculous. It's 30 years old and it's
Not
made
going
of
anywhere.
almost solid tube steel. It's fantastic. But we've had the neighbor's trampoline up against our fence a couple of times.
And that's a really easy fix. They have like the 18-inch anchors that you could put into the ground, hammer it down as if you would do for like a fence. And I put, in my house specifically, I put the bike tie around it. And
Problem solved.
Problem solved. One of my landscapers suggested, you could always dig them out. And it didn't seem that expensive neither. And it's easier for the parents to get in there too.
Yeah.
And the net's not as required as much when you're in ground too.
So if somebody has a trampoline with no net, does that increase their potential liability?
Absolutely.
Just for not having what's now become a common safety feature? Is that kind of the long and short of it?
And it goes along with pools and making sure they're fenced also.
Of course, yeah.
Things evolve, and that's going to be one of the evolutions of trampolines is making sure they have netting around them.
Okay.
What are some things that you do not cover, just as a general rule for people, so that they should be considering what they're going to do that maybe they aren't thinking about?
What do I cover?
What do you not cover?
What can you not cover? What's something if it came across your desk, be like, not with a 10-foot pole. Is Farmers going to touch this?
That's kind of the fun part is if Farmers doesn't touch it, we become a broker.
Okay.
And so that's kind of just very exquisite to Farmers. There's a lot of companies that if you do something like that, they'll have to send you out to somebody else and have you find it. I find very unfrequently really old buildings. Old. I mean, I just looked at a 1868 apartment.
Okay.
Couldn't do it. I couldn't touch it with a stick.
Just too many potential problems.
The safety, like we said, the evolution of things, the safety features of that 1868 apartment building was not up to par. And
So what about older homes, that still have like the plug fuse systems, that we see around Prescott? I mean, we've got
tube and wire. Mhm.
We've got
Not in
old
tube, sorry.
homes,
Yeah.
here in the Prescott area that were built, in the early 1900s.
So
does that become an issue?
No, because I could. Homes are a different factor.
Okay.
Because the apartment building had, it was, I think, a 8 or 10 unit building.
Okay.
And so that the liability there, the potential loss is so massive there.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the big thing there. With residential, I actually insure something down the street with the antique, I don't know what they're called.
One of the historic Victorian homes.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah, that's why you're the realtor. But the cool thing is this policy specifically has coverage for their handcraft crown molding.
Yeah, because that stuff's expensive.
Yeah, they have the tri-key thing also. And so there's coverage for that specific door knob. And so that doorknob would cost retail $250, and again, this historic home coverage policy covers it. So homes are not as much of an issue as it would be like the commercial
For business, commercial type applications.
Okay.
I kind of want to circle back to kind of neighborhood liability. What about umbrella policies?
Umbrellas. So I would start with one thing, as we were talking about the houses earlier. And I see this a lot, unfortunately. If you have, and we were talking about kind of the land versus how much I have on the house insured and then ties into your liability. I see a lot of times maybe a $500,000 home, and then the liability on that $500,000 home is only $300,000. And so right away I see an issue because potentially their asset, their home is worth more than their liability. And nobody's ever going to sue you for less than what you have. So the first thing that comes to mind is that your liability on your homeowner's policy or any policy that you have should exceed your assets, whatever it is. And so that's where the umbrella comes in. When you see, and again, I had the circumstance happen to me. I had a customer that was worth about $2.5 million, but her auto insurance was only $100,000, and her homeowner's insurance was only $300,000. And so we kind of gave her a flat limit on everything: $500,000 on her auto, $500,000 on her home, and then we had a $2 million umbrella that covers her $2.5 million of assets. Mm-hmm. And crazy story with her. Again, I live by examples, but she was driving down Willow Creek, rear-ended an inexpensive vehicle, like a 2008 BMW. And she didn't like completely rear end them. She just nicked them really good.
Yeah.
But the guy drives like I do, and I drive with one hand in my steering wheel, and she broke his wrist. In most cases, not a big deal, but the guy was driving up here from Phoenix, Scottsdale. He's a surgeon, and he nets $200,000. That lawsuit settled for $867,000, and that's a 10-week broken wrist, right? And so that umbrella came into play because her auto insurance maxed out at $500.
Makes me a little nauseous just thinking about it.
And her umbrella covered the difference. So the umbrella is at any point, if your limits of insurance are exceeded on your home or your auto, that umbrella comes in and covers you for the difference. And so that's a good example of how umbrellas work, and also how why they're so
umbrella coverage is pretty cheap.
Yeah, for
all things considered.
$1 million average is about $250 a year.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really,
so I mean, it's
a no-brainer.
Not that it's less than $50 a month. You know,
it's pretty
to
awesome.
protect everything or more of everything. I should say. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I have a question about vacant properties. What about vacant properties? If we have a listing and it's been vacant for more than 6 months, where do we stand on homeowners insurance?
So you don't have to wait for 6 months, depending on who their carrier is. Carriers would say anything between, and this doesn't only goes for homeowners, but also landlord policies. So landlord policies are almost written the same way on how long the vacancy is allowed for. So the vacancies, the max I've ever seen is between 30 and 90 days. If it exceeds 90 days, and that's going to be on a really good policy, vacant, then you need to change the policy to a vacant home.
Okay.
And so, and the importance of that is not only because of the I would say excess loss that you would have, right? You have a pipe burst, you left for work, you come back and you see water coming out of your front door, you'll know right away.
Yeah.
But if you left that house alone for 3 months and that happened, there's going to be a lot more exposures to that loss. So that's the first thing, is that your exposure is there. But, we have people that sit in empty homes, and if we have somebody that shows that house now and a potential of, a robbery, or I don't like to say that, but rape, then you also have that potential liability there. And so if you have a homeowner's policy, that policy may potentially not actually cover it at all. And that's not including the kind of trashing of the house of that person staying there. So the vacant home policies are imperative, and it's imperative to read your policy to see how long it's going to cover you for an empty home. And then if it does cover you, it becomes kind of what we call an ACV, or actual cash value, where it gets it loses value on the house. And it could lose up to 0%. I mean, it could go down to nothing. So if the house is vacant for more than, like you said, an example of 6 months, then that potential home policy is covering nothing, period.
Okay, so we're going to advise our clients to make sure they check with their homeowner's insurance if they're planning to be out of the home more than 2 months, just really, to be safe, to make sure that they are covered and that they're straight with their homeowner's insurance, because I don't think that people really ask those questions. I think that's a very good piece of information for potential, for our sellers, for sure.
Yeah, for home sellers, that's huge.
And the other thing is, with people that are looking at landlord policies, they may see landlord policies the same way as you see like a short-term rental, like an Airbnb or something like that. And that's not the case whatsoever. So if you're looking at short-term rentals also, there's a lot of investors out there looking at different things. And so that's going to be something that you want to kind of make sure that you find a short-term rental coverage specific to Airbnbs and other coverages like that.
Gotcha.
Nice. All right, I have one more question, and then we'll let you go. What about older manufactured homes? Is there a specific year that you won't cover? Is there specific questions we should be asking with regards to manufactured homes?
So manufactured homes, doesn't matter the year, we'll cover them.
Okay.
So if they've been removed or replaced, also you see some people carrying loans, we'll do that also. We own a company called Foremost, which is kind of one of the leaders of manufactured homes out there.
Okay.
But the other thing is, I can't emphasize enough of actual cash value versus replacement cost on a manufactured home. And so actual cash value basically means that your house is depreciating over time. It's not going to be covered for the face value. And so a lot of, I should be careful with what I say, but I see policies that are written for more than I would write them for. Like if I wrote a house for $60,000, they're writing it for $75,000. But they're writing it because that house is going to depreciate over the next, 3 years, 50%.
Yeah.
And so we do the face value, and then we're going to do replacement cost for that face value, where they're depreciating that home. Again, I live by examples. We were for the Goodwin fire that happened a year and a half ago now.
Yeah.
We helped somebody process a claim. Wasn't through farmers, but we processed her claim. She had the same insurance company for 15 years. A 94 double wide, 1,600 square feet was lost completely to the ground, unfortunately. And her insurance company gave her $19,000 for that home because they appreciated it over the 15 years. And so she was in tears saying she
Didn't actually cover the cost to replace anything, really.
Her example is she couldn't even replace the home.
Yeah.
I mean, a car, excuse me.
Yeah, that's really...
So
That's super unfortunate.
replacement costs on our home will be imperative, and manufactured homes are not an issue for us. We're pretty quick to do them, turn around. So some people are, what's your downtime to insure a manufactured home? And as long as your house is in good condition, we should be able to turn around and do that the same day.
Okay.
And then some last points. I know we're kind of coming to the end here, but
So before you jump, just to clarify, so everyone is 100% clear. If you own a manufactured home, what type of policy should you own?
replacement cost is the
Replacement cost.
and you want to make sure that's not on just your property, your personal property, but also the actual structure.
Okay.
And so going to that and talking about kind of the exposures of a home, I can't emphasize enough about making sure you have a good clear space around your home.
Defensible spaces.
Correct. And so a lot of us, I mean, I even had to remind myself this winter is, I cut up wood and move it away from the house, not have it close to your home, making sure that you have, trees not growing over your house, cleaning those gutters, just reminders of those things are so imperative to make sure you preserve your home.
Okay, one more. I'm sorry. Just one more. Renter's insurance. Somebody is going to move into a property. The landlord doesn't cover certain things for the renter. So what should the renter know about renter's insurance?
Get it. It's cheap. It starts at $10, goes up to as much coverage as you need. But at the end of the day, you're covering everything inside those houses in general. So that everything in your cabinets, in your kitchen, all that clothes, your TVs, your sofas, et cetera, your landlord doesn't cover you for that. The other thing is certain policies also cover you to help you move. So if there's a loss, you don't have to do deposits again. They'll help you pay for that up front. So that's a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah, huge. And so everything inside that house is going to be covered. That's your property, not somebody else's. And then we talked about dogs earlier. So if you're Fido, Yorkie Terrier that bites somebody down the street, it's covered, right? You don't have to worry about your landlord kicking you out because of that. You're covering yourself through your own policy with liability on there too.
Peace of mind. Okay. Well, how can people reach you if they have questions about homeowners insurance?
So you could find us at danielmartinezagency.com. You could find us on Google. We have close to 50 reviews, all 5 stars, which I pride myself in a lot. You could find us on Facebook at Daniel G. Martinez, Farmers Insurance, Instagram,
Look for
DG Martinez.
Look for the dude in the blue Care Bear costume.
That's right. I pride myself on that. Who else cares about you that much?
That's right.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for being here. I think we've given our viewers a lot of good information to work with for the next few months.
Yeah, thank you so much for stopping in. We really do appreciate your time, man.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right, until next time, I'm Kellen Hoskins. This is Carissa Maxwell. We will see you next week.